Hi, I'm Matt,
And I'm Jess.
and I can't believe you haven't seen Inside Man.
Wait a minute. I can't believe you haven't seen Inside Man.
Well, this is awkward. I guess I can't believe
We
we
haven't seen.
Inside Man. So, welcome to episode 10 of I Can't Believe You Haven't Seen, or our first installment of
I can't believe we haven't seen.
We're So Clever.
I know.
Because contrary to popular belief, there are movies that we both have not seen.
It's
Or even one of us hasn't seen, and the other one, you know the format by now. This is the 10th episode.
yeah, it's a bit. It is a struggle to find movies we both haven't seen, but we've found one.
We found one. We did. So this is going to be a little bit unique from what we've done before, as opposed to one person seeing the movie for the first time and leading the conversation like we normally do. We don't know how it's going to work. We're just going to kind of freestyle this and see how it goes.
Yeah, this, welcome to what it actually looks like when we see a movie, like, in theaters and then spend the car ride home talking.
Yes.
That's what this is going to be.
Exactly. So we have very little plan. I believe, as the kids say, we're going to raw dog this one.
Ooh, nope. I don't think the kids are saying that.
I still can't believe that raw dogging a flight is a real thing on social media.
Oh, dear. Yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah.
Maybe the kids are saying that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we'll jump into it. But before we do, I can't believe it's been 10 episodes either.
I know.
This is wild.
This is a little wild. 3 weeks in between episodes, so we'll officially now have gone like more than a half a year doing episodes, which is crazy. And also really fun that we get to like talk to people through a podcast and spend time, and just people want to listen to us talk a bunch of BS about movies.
I guess. We get to listen to us. So thank you to everybody who's listened at any point to any one of the episodes, or to our super cuts of ridiculous shit that gets said during these podcasts, or following on Instagram, or following you on Letterboxd, or following us on TikTok. All those things are really cool. So thanks, everybody.
Yeah, this is great. And so to go with this whole brave new world of I can't believe we haven't seen.
It's a different movie.
We just watched Inside Man yesterday, from 2006. It is directed by Spike Lee, a Spike Lee joint, as they are always known as.
Correct, yeah.
Spike
That's
films.
how he always does it.
And it is I guess you would call this sort of a crime thriller.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely you would.
Crime thriller with a few other avenues of genre as part of it, starring Denzel Washington, Clive Owen, Jodie Foster, Chiwetel Ejiofor, Willem Dafoe, and Christopher Plummer. Kind of a murderer's row of an acting cast. I actually read a thing on Letterboxd that somebody did a really quick review of this movie, and it was like an internal monologue of the casting director where it said, okay, we need a normal police officer that's going to be skeptical of a detective. I'll cast Willem Dafoe. Sure.
Yeah, that's fine.
Why not?
This is totally fine.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing cast. And, a lot of them at the kind of either the peak of, or kind of right at the cresting point for Chiwetel as being kind of a much bigger star from this. So
yeah, I knew there was a lot of really great actors in this. Obviously, if you've listened to any episode of this, you know my deep, unabashed love for Jodie Foster.
Mm-hmm.
And I love Denzel Washington. Like, there was a lot of actors in this that I knew I was going to go into loving. I didn't realize just how many. Like, I didn't look up, as per usual, we don't look things up before we watch. Generally speaking, I don't want to spoil anything. And so I didn't realize Christopher Plummer and Willem Dafoe were in it. And as that's coming up in the credits at the beginning, I was like, what?
Yeah.
And also, because we both have a really deep love of Spike Lee joints, as it were, and have watched a number of them. We compared the rest last night. Turns out there are others we both haven't seen, but that'll be in the future. But Spike Lee makes incredible commentary movies and is just phenomenal anyway.
Yes.
And this one is right around the time I think I would have been seeing a lot of these kind of movies anyway. So I was shocked that we both hadn't seen it.
Yeah, and this is right in a pocket of Spike's films where he kind of made a really big name for himself in the 80s, but really at the end of the 80s, because Do the Right Thing was 1989. And that's the one that really kind of put him on the map. Then he had a really good run in the 90s and also started to branch out into different genres in the 90s.
Yeah.
One of his films that you've seen that I haven't is Summer of Sam, which is a little more like serial killer, thrillery, like even more hard-edged than this from what I understand.
I was like crime, but not in a... This is a different kind of crime. It's not... There's no murder in this one. And actually, one of the central questions of this movie... Is there a crime in this movie?
Yes, we'll get to that, I imagine. But
well, I hope so.
Yeah. This is Spike is a filmmaker we both enjoy, and it's right at a time where this is actually in between a couple of movies that I had seen a long time ago of his, 25th Hour, and I am now trying to remember what comes after this one. Jess is looking it up for me as I talk, but it's there was one movie in between 25th Hour and this film, which was She Hate Me, which I've not seen, and then there's a bit of time until Black Klansman, which I think was his next like really widely acclaimed film, which obviously won him an Oscar, and that's a big deal.
Rightfully so. 25th Hour, She Hate Me, Inside Man.
Yes.
That's how that goes.
And then after Inside Man was
Miracle at St. Anna.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So he this is the kind of the start of him really going into a few different genres, and this one is a very commercial genre. Like I didn't look up how this did at the box office, but this is the type of crime thriller that you do see pretty often still to this day. That's sort of a like get a relatively decent name to play the leading role, have an interesting crime thriller, cut, paste, print, probably make profit. Like it's the kind of movie they do a lot. And it's really interesting to see somebody like Spike take on a movie like this, because he's Spike Lee. He doesn't do things normal. And even when he does take on something closer to quote unquote normal, it's still got Spike Lee touches all over it.
Oh, so much. Because this is what I do, I like to fact check us live time. Budget for this movie was $45 to $60 million estimated.
Okay.
Box office 184.4.
That's really good.
So it was very commercially successful. Interestingly enough, this was picked up by Imagine co-founder, or pardon me, Imagine Entertainment, right? Was purchased to be made by Universal Pictures, which makes sense. The Imagine co-founder, Ron Howard, was originally supposed to direct this.
Interesting.
And then he stepped down. His business partner started looking for a new director, and then they hired Spike Lee.
Sure.
And I have to wonder if this is a very different movie, because don't get me wrong, Ron Howard, great, but he's a very different director than Spike Lee is.
Yeah, very by the numbers. Ron Howard is. He is there for kind of pushing the story along, and not necessarily for he's not known for his, let's say, like sweeping long takes or other things that other directors have. He can kind of do a little bit of anything and tell a story, whereas Spike can tell a story and he's going to do some weird shit with it. Yeah. That's that would have been a very different movie.
Now I'm glad. Sorry, Ron Howard. I'm glad it was Spike Lee.
Now I'm wondering what Apollo 13 directed by Spike Lee would have been like. That would have been interesting.
Well, this is a fun game we could play.
Okay, again, I really have no idea where or how we want to start this one, but because we started talking about Spike, maybe that's the best way to start it off, because The very, very first shot of this movie is a not stereotypical, like a signature Spike Lee shot, and it happens a couple more times in this movie. And I think if you go back to something like Do the Right Thing, they're in there as well and may not have registered, but it's the shot of Clive Owen speaking directly to the camera with a black backdrop, just him talking to camera, telling, "This is my name. I don't say it more than once, so listen very carefully," blah, 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 and talks about just some, like, preamble that we really don't know anything about yet. But what's actually happening is that it's a weird tracking shot where the camera and Clive are moving together towards the back of what is this prison cell looking thing that he's in. And it looks like the wall is coming up towards him. This is a very typical Spike Lee shot where either the background looks like it's moving closer or it's moving away and the person looking at the camera isn't moving. And there's a couple of other shots. There's one with Christopher Plummer where they're doing the monologue about Christopher Plummer starting the bank, and his background actually folds away behind him. And then there's another one with Denzel after the quote-unquote hostage getting shot, where Denzel is moving from the emergency command center to the front of the bank that's getting robbed, and he's on this dolly shot, so everybody's moving around him, and it looks like he's not walking.
Yeah, that actually is a shot that I picked up on. The other ones, I picked up on the Clive Owen one, not so much how it was done, but that something was different about it because it's like this W5 expose, so that I picked up on. The one that really gets me and is very much I'm like, oh, hello, signature Spike Lee, was Denzel's "I'm not moving, but everybody else is."
Yeah.
And what an important, poignant moment, right? Where it's this hostage has been shot, quote unquote. Because spoiler alert, if you haven't seen a movie from 19 years ago, there was no hostage that was shot.
Yeah.
But at this time, they believe that hostage has been shot, and so it's him. You know, if someone has been shot, is he responsible, right? As a hostage negotiator, is he responsible? So it's like almost like this moment where he's in his head, and everything's happening around him, but he's so focused on, holy shit, this just happened, which is why it makes that shot so cool, because it's the literal embodiment of, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god. Yeah,
all of those moments in this movie are specifically about some kind of like introspective moment in time. With Clive Owen, it's him monologuing, so he is actually talking. The other two, there's no dialogue, but it's a moment where it's like of some kind of contemplation or some kind of exposition where it's like, oh, now I'm really in my own head. It's almost like the part in the movie where Denzel would go, "And I blacked out when I was running from this place to this place." It's just like he moved through like sheer force of will rather than of conscious effort. And there's a lot of Spike Lee touches through this movie. I wouldn't call them places where they don't need to be, but there's moments that Spike goes, I can make this more interesting.
Places where you don't necessarily expect them out of a movie like this.
Yes.
Were it not Spike Lee, they wouldn't exist.
Yeah, like there's moments where, you know, and we'll get into a little bit about the story in a second, but when Jodie Foster is admitted into the bank that's being robbed, they're like, when she goes in and is getting patted down by the bank robbers, the shot is from directly over top of her with like the shadow cascading in through the window, and then they walk out through it. So it's one of those where it's like, did that shot need to exist for the story? No, but it gives you some atmosphere behind how things are set up, and Spike is wonderful for that. Like he always in his films takes an approach where it's like, what's drawing interest in this part of it, and also pulling out some emotions and parts of that and parts of the characters that don't necessarily get to talk about it much in this movie, because this is very much a like crime procedural in a lot of ways.
It's great. I actually had a note about that one too, now that you've mentioned it, with Jodie Foster being frisked. the way that that's shot, not just from above, but the angles of the shadows and the way the cameras are moving, it makes it feel like the whole world is tilting forward.
Yes.
Which is really interesting because this is a turning point to the movie. Mm-hmm. So, way to go, Spike Lee.
Yeah.
It's almost like
good.
you've planned this. Yeah. I had one other thought on that one, but when we talk about things in the zooms and like the camera shots.
Yep.
The central issue with this crime, it has been created to center around what the contents of one specific safety deposit box is, right? Mm-hmm. And the number is 392.
Yep.
But when at one like point in the movie, I think it's when they've actually like have broken, like they've got in and they're checking for whatever. Mm-hmm. There's a zoom on blood on 391.
Yeah.
So it's this like, hey, pay attention to this.
Yeah.
But it's without being like, did you notice that there's no, like, mm-hmm. Did you see this thing? It was just this really interesting way. It's a Spike Lee move, right?
Yeah.
The way that zoom happens, and mm-hmm. It's like, oh, hi, this is an important shot. You should pay attention to this. But it doesn't last very long, so you don't really have a lot of time to register other than, oh.
Yeah.
That happened.
When it comes back in again, you're like, aha.
Yes. Oh, that's why you did that.
Yeah.
Got it. So yeah, it's very interesting.
And there's a very unique storytelling mechanic in this movie that almost trains your brain to do that in a way. Where, so I guess the story of this film is that Clive Owen is some kind of an indiscriminate criminal that is planning to rob a bank. And the only reason that he gives for it is because he can.
And, I mean, aside from the financial gain, I think is how he phrases that.
Yes. So we have a bank robbery that is essentially happening almost immediately, where Clive Owen's character's picking up these other characters in painting costume, or like the suits of somebody who's coming in to paint the bank. And they get in there, they disable a bunch of cameras, take a bunch of hostages, take them downstairs into the bank vault, and essentially start a hostage standoff situation.
Yep.
And throughout this standoff, which the police get there, they quarantine the area off, set up an emergency response center, and get Denzel and Chiwetel Ejiofor in, who are there for hostage negotiation as detectives. And you get a little bit of exposition about them and that they're not maybe the first choice for this, but somebody's on vacation, so Denzel's quote-unquote getting another chance. We don't really know why, but that's the setup. He gets there. Willem Dafoe is the commanding officer running the tactical police part. And then we have a standoff. And the storytelling mechanic comes in as this standoff is happening, where you suddenly get these inserts where Denzel and his partner are talking to the various hostages. So this has clearly happened later on. It's shot in a way that has a little bit of like washed out yellow. So it's almost like, okay, these are interview inserts.
Yeah. Which
is exactly what they are. They're interrogating all of the hostages and trying to get information out of them in different ways. And you're not really told a lot of what's going on, other than people keep saying that there's 4 people there. And we're only seeing 3 bank robbers. Mm-hmm. So there's this part where it's like, aha, this is called Inside Man. Okay, so we're set, like, there's little clues and crumbs about, like, okay, we're going to do this. And then there's these interview inserts that you don't know why they're happening, but you kind of get what it is. And eventually you're like, okay, they're trying to suss out information that there was somebody else involved that was one of the hostages, or one of the hostages knew something.
Well, and I think, too, it's not just that they're trying to suss out information on this missing Inside Man. Mm-hmm. They're trying to figure out who actually committed the crimes.
Yes.
Not just this one extra human. All of them. Mm-hmm. Because they don't have anybody.
Yeah.
Is the way this movie ends, as far as the hostage situation goes, is everyone is in the same jumpsuit and mask.
Yeah.
Because that's like part of the crime plan.
Mm-hmm.
And they all come out together and end up on their faces with their hands handcuffed behind them.
Yeah.
And they go on a bus to the precinct, because they don't know who the actual killer, or the actual crime doers are. There's no, no real description of the criminals because everybody is dressed the same.
Yeah, and they make a point, the criminals, and led by Clive Owen. You find out that they very clearly know what they're doing, and we'll talk about that a little bit more later, I know. But they're mixing and matching people, for lack of a better word. They're always moving. Like, they have the hostages in different rooms in the bank vault basement, and they're always moving them between rooms.
Yeah.
Including mixing in the actual criminals that aren't Clive Owen into being the hostages.
Yeah, he's the only one who never gets to be a hostage.
Yeah, so the other two that are part of the initial robbery are going in there with guns, taking everybody down, and then masquerading as going in as one of the hostages and being dragged in some cases even being a person that's going to be like, I'm going to be indignant and stand up to them and take my mask off, what are they going to do, and then getting dragged around. He being actually one of the criminals is to throw the trail off. So they're already thinking ahead to the point that they're all going to be interrogated, and we need to create as much confusion as possible.
Yeah, no, it's brilliant. We can talk about that in a second. But when you talked about the story mechanic of inserting the interviews, yeah, they're not just trying to find that; they're trying to find the criminal at all.
Exactly.
And it's cut in such a way that it leads you back to that opening line with, I believe the character's name is Dalton Russell.
Yep.
So Clive Owen's character. He only says it once. He doesn't repeat himself.
Yep.
It feels very similar because it's that face on interview, and there are other ones that are cut the same.
Yeah.
So it's that very, person being interrogated speaking directly to the camera, and as it progresses we get more shots of the two detectives interrogating, not just a person giving their statement.
Yeah.
And so you're led to believe through this entire movie to the end that opener is Clive Owen's character doing the same thing.
Yeah.
Fucking clever.
Yeah.
Because that's not what's happening.
No, and it creates some chaos and some confusion, which when they're interrogating the hostages, you can tell there's sort of like everybody has similar info, and there's just enough alibis to go around for literally everyone. When someone incriminates someone, two other people unincriminate them because of what's there. So it does a really good job of creating chaos and confusion and, futility in trying to figure anything out, which you definitely feel multiple times through the crime. So it's really interesting as a mechanic, because you're kind of given this, okay, this is a movie called Inside Man. They keep talking about, which one of you is Steve or Stevie or Steve-O, because that's the other thing. They all are given that name during the bank robbery. All of the criminals call each other Steve, Stevie, and Steve-O. So you can't really necessarily identify who's who. And Denzel tries to trip some of the hostages up to say, anybody ever call you Stevie? Or the one guy with the hearing aids that he asked him to take him out and look at him and to test if he actually needs the hearing aids. Like, it's a lot of really clever, ways of, it's not just typical hostage negotiation that you'd see on something like Law and Order, where it's just direct storytelling. This is a little more like, okay, no, I'm trying to be nice and trying to talk to this rabbi and trying to talk to this lady and, bring up the fact that, well, one of the perps was described as having a large cup size, and the woman kind of going like, oh, cool, so I have tits and that's why I'm incriminated. Awesome.
I think the line was, I've violated section 34, line double D or something. Yeah,
section double D, whatever it is. So it's a very, very clever screenplay in that it's a very well thought out procedural that also kind of gets interrupted and intercut with two of the actors we haven't talked about at all, really. Jodie Foster and Christopher Plummer.
Yeah, that's a super fun. There's a whole other story happening, and it kind of feels in the initial introduction like, oh, there's something going on here that's related to this bank robbery. And we just want, so full disclosure, Christopher Plummer is the owner of that safety deposit box.
And built the bank.
And
owns
built
the bank. Yeah.
Owns the bank, has been around for a long time. Mm-hmm. Christopher Plummer is an old man at this point, but not, this is 2006, so we're going back a few years. So he's standing in his palatial home, and his assistant, ostensibly, we don't really get to see much of her beyond that moment, comes and tells him that there's a bank robbery happening, and it's happening at the original bank.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, he's upset about that. That's a problem. I'm sure people like to keep their money and stuff. And then you learn, no, he's concerned about the safety deposit box.
Yeah.
You're not told what's in the safety deposit box.
Yeah.
You just know that there's something in there that he'd like to keep private, and there's a bank robbery happening.
Yeah.
At the outset, those two things do not seem to be related.
No, they kind of go on independently, and Jodie Foster's character comes in as this, I don't even know what to call her.
She's a fixer.
Really. Yeah, like a fixer, somebody that is going to be brought in that has influence for untold reasons and is basically high-paying elite clients come in, pay her a bunch of money to either make things go away or fix situations, and this is one of them where he essentially hires her to ensure the contents of the safety deposit box are safe, but also don't get stolen, don't get into the wrong hands, just don't get made public. Like, you're really not told.
Really just trying to keep anybody from accessing this particular safety deposit box.
And he doesn't tell her what they are. It's just, this is the situation, this is what needs to happen. Can you make it work? And she says, I can make it work. So then you have this other plot going on in the police procedural, which is unique and doesn't seem to have anything to do with anything else.
Yeah, because you've got this whole crime story of this bank has been broken into, they're robbing the bank, they have hostages. Why? Mm-hmm. But also that's the immediate threat. And then also the old guy's worried about something. And, because maybe I'm desensitized as where my brain goes, but I'm like, oh, he has incriminating photos, or he has a whole second family or something. That's where my brain goes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, quite. Spike Lee.
Yeah, I think in my head, I think if I was guessing, I was like, okay, there's something stolen, there's something illegal, there's something there that can't be spoken about even to this person that he's hiring. And it's one of several tropes, actually, that goes back to the film noir genre. And we've watched a few film noirs together. And we, at some point, will be watching one for the podcast that won't spoil what it is.
We'll come back to that.
But the genre of film noir, if you're not familiar, is a genre that started in the 1940s that is all about, like, very gritty, usually crime dramas that have to do with, like, the dark underbelly of humanity.
Some dame came to my office.
Yeah, it's the Humphrey Bogart, Sam Spade type of stereotype where the detective goes after something. And there's a lot of tropes in noir, one of them being a femme fatale, which you kind of have here with Jodie Foster. But the one really that's a big one is a MacGuffin, which is a plot device in a lot of different things. And usually the MacGuffin is some kind of a crime that is covering up something else, which is really what's going on here, is that not only is there, like, a crime that is distracting from everything else, the other part is the, like, unresolved thing that continues to linger, and even at the end of the movie, it's still kind of dangling there and isn't resolved, and something's probably going to happen.
But when and what, we will never know.
Exactly. So there's some really famous examples of this in noir movies, and even though this isn't a noir film specifically, there's a lot of homages to it. The hat, Denzel's hat, he's wearing the old school fedora. His suit is very, like, 1940s detective.
Yeah, it's got some LA noir look going.
Yeah, for sure.
Can we just briefly, Denzel Washington might be one of the only men I have seen contemporarily who can wear a fedora and not look ridiculous.
A white fedora, nonetheless, too, with a white suit.
White suit, white fedora. Yeah. No, that's it's a real thing.
Yeah.
It looked great, to be fair.
It looked great.
Yes.
It also looked great in the very last shot of the movie, like being twirled on the end of his girlfriend's foot. That's hilarious.
Yeah.
That was so good.
Yes. Maybe she's the femme fatale for him anyway.
Yeah.
Also, just because you mentioned it and we're talking about like details and things, I do want to go back because you said earlier you don't know, and I think he's a central. Sorry, I don't think he is a central character. So it's important to talk about Keith. Who's Denzel Washington's character. He said you don't know, you're not told why he's been given a second chance. No, you are though. You are told.
Eventually, yes.
No, you're told right at the outset. They talk about the money going missing.
Yeah. But
and
not
that he's being blamed for it.
Yeah. And you get more trickle out info as it goes, but yeah.
Yeah, but it's like him and his partner are talking and he says the crackhead said the money went missing. It's a check cashing thing. I had nothing to do with it. You don't find out how much money until later.
Yeah.
But you do find out what's happened, what he's being accused of, why he has IA on his ass, internal affairs. And why this is a big deal. Like, you get that early on.
Yeah.
And I just wasn't sure if you missed that or if it just didn't. Yeah.
I think the part that trickles out a little more is that you get a little bit of doubt in Denzel's character in spots.
Yes.
Where he is starting to, talk about potentially being bribed-ish at getting detective first class. And so his character comes into question part of the way through, and you sort of go like, oh, is he just playing this off and he's like a 30% dirty cop, or is he actually this more kind of righteous good cop type
isn't that a question? Are there good cops and bad cops in this movie?
Yeah.
Which we can come back to that in a second. I think for me, I had that question at the outset.
Yeah.
Because he talks about that and then proceeds to talk about his girlfriend's brother who's a criminal that lives with them and they need a bigger place and blah, blah, blah. And part of me is like, is he? Or are you, like, I don't doubt that Denzel Washington's character. I don't doubt that Keith is a good detective. And I don't necessarily believe in that instant that he's taken the money.
Yeah.
But the way he describes this child is a little like, huh.
Yeah.
This feels like, huh.
Yeah.
I kind of questioned the full 100% good cop from the get-go. Now, is his partner that? Yes, I think there's no question.
Yeah, he's a little bit greener, so he is a little more naive. Not naive, he's definitely not naive, but a little more straight
idealistic.
And narrow. Yeah. And that's also a very noir trope as well. You can't
100%.
trust the police. You can't necessarily trust the detective or the private investigator that is out for their own interest with it. So
yeah, can't trust nobody.
Yeah, exactly. And that's an interesting thing to put in a movie like this that is very, very coded in the mid 2000s. Because there is a lot going on. I mean, the ringtone thing I laughed so hard at, where when they have the hostages in the basement, they're collecting all of their cell phones and car keys. All those flip phones and Motorola Razors. Oh my god!
I have a note about that too.
But as they're collecting it, there's one character, Peter Hammond, who doesn't give over a cell phone and says, "Oh, I left it at home today." And the criminals are not having any of it. And Dalton then goes through all of the cell phones from the employees until he finds one that has a P. Hammond contact and calls it, and it rings out loud from the other room that he clearly threw it away in. And the ringtone, remember those in the 2000s? His ringtone is Gold Digger by Kanye West. And I'm just like, oh boy, the whitest of white dudes at the bank has Gold Digger. Oh, 2006.
Yeah, man. I mean, it was pretty accurate.
Yeah, and that there's several instances of it being, oh, this is very 2000s coded. And the next one comes early on, and a few more lingering ones afterwards is the what I'm going to call the treatment of anyone, but most specifically certain populations post 9/11 America.
Oh yeah, that's a deep one. We'll come back to that in a second. So there's a lot there. I have to talk about Peter and his cell phone.
Yes.
Because there's nobody leading this conversation, it's hard enough we have to stick to the thoughts here.
Give her.
Why don't we have our phones on silent? There was such a 2000s thing to not have your phone on silent.
Mm-hmm.
And now you could ring my phone anywhere in this house and I won't find it because it never has the sound on.
Mm-hmm.
So it just made me laugh. I think I have an actual note that's like, well, if you just had your phone on silent like we do now. But you're talking about like 2000s coded 100%. Mid 2000?
Yeah.
It absolutely is.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think it's just certain populations post 2000. Now I'm going to like skip ahead here.
Mm-hmm.
You're right. It's very mid 2000s coded.
Yeah.
However, I think there's a broader conversation here about the treatment of minorities, period.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And
which is not a surprise. This is a Spike Lee movie.
Totally. And the first real like standout lingering incident happens when they let a second hostage out of the bank early on, and it's one of the bank tellers, a Muslim gentleman that is
a Sikh
gentleman, pardon me, that is wearing a turban, and they send him out with a like piece of metal, like a metal cover for something that has a message written on it around, like wearing it around his neck, and the police immediately take the hostage down. They did take the first one down as well, who was an elderly gentleman that was having a heart problem, and they still kind of not cuffed him, I guess, zip tied his hands and got him out of there pretty quickly.
But then you also notice when he says, am I going to be on TV?
Yeah.
That's the focus here. Am I going to be on TV?
Yeah.
Yeah, sir, you sure are. You were just in a bank robbery.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's kind
Also
of a big deal.
good reminder in the 2000s that how we consumed our media was not via cell phone.
No,
So-
it was very much still, I'm going to be on TV. And the TV reporters are there very immediately, and we get a lot of cutaways to the news.
Yeah,
well,
it's just
being a big
interesting
thing.
because that's not that long ago, but how we've consumed media and news has changed
Totally.
so much that it's like,
Yeah.
Right.
It's funny to go from watching this movie to the one we just watched together, which is Eddington.
where everything is through your cell phone.
Yeah, it's all through social media, doom scrolling, Facebook, whatever. Like
That whole movie is about doom scrolling and how it's going to ruin us, basically.
Yeah, that's a wild movie. If you like wild, crazy movies, Eddington is excellent.
Yeah, if you're looking for an uplifting movie, maybe not that,
No.
but it's a phenomenal movie. And recently released, which is why that's coming up now. But yes, to see the juxtaposition of, like, everything via cell phone. Hell, our notes for this are on our cell phones.
Yeah.
I'm literally looking at my phone right now to go, oh, what else did I want to talk about?
Yeah.
And then you flip back and it's Gold Digger by the Whitest White Dude on a flip phone. Everybody's contacts were easy to get into. Nothing's face locked or locked. It's just a flip phone. You open it, you're into it, as the criminals do. And your phone isn't on silent.
Yeah. Yeah, and you either had a cell phone or you had the like, what was the name of it? Was it PDAs? The like
The
Palm
sidekicks?
Pre's, the sidekicks? Yeah, all of those like
Palm Pilot.
yeah, and like right when I'm sure there
Post-
was a BlackBerry or two in there.
Oh
as
yeah,
well.
that's absolutely where BlackBerry came from.
Yeah.
It's the post pager
Yes.
pre-smartphone era.
Yeah.
And-
Flip.
Flip, brick phones. Anyway, I had my first cell phone around that time, which is why that makes this so funny. to
Yeah,
me.
no, it would have been around that time as well.
Anyway.
But anyways, to get back to our discussion of minorities and the treatment, we have our
Casual racism.
Casual
is
racism.
everywhere in this movie.
Yes, and the second gentleman that is the hostage that gets released gets immediately taken down, handcuffed, zip tied, his turban removed on the street immediately, despite him yelling, "I'm a teller. I work for the bank. I'm a teller. Why are you taking off?" Like all of these things of like, what are you doing to me? I'm not one of the criminals. I'm being released. I was one of the hot. Like everything he's saying out loud, and he's still getting taken down like he's committed a crime. Then moved over to the diner, which is in the area they've closed off, and they're interviewing and talking to some of the people, and he's repeatedly saying, "Why did they take off my turban? I want my turban. It is a religious thing. I'm not speaking to anybody." And it takes them like a couple of minutes before they actually hear him say any of that. Any of the police officers that are talking to him, Denzel is trying to get info out of him, and the treatment of him as a brown person, as a person of color post 9/11. He's talking about like, why do I always get treated this way? He's sort of monologuing in a bit when he's calmed down. He's like, doesn't matter where I go. You go to the airport, I go to the bank, I go to the police station, like wherever it is, I get looked at the same way, I get treated the same way. And that is very, very much was the reality, and kind of is still the reality we live in a lot of ways.
Nothing's changed.
Of racial profiling.
Oh, horrible. It's not changed. His name is Vikram, and at one point when they tackle him and realize the two white cops tackle him to the ground, let's be real, and they recognize that he is brown, that he is of Middle Eastern descent.
Yeah.
They start calling him an Arab.
Yeah.
And he yells, "I'm not, I'm Sikh," and that's when they undo his turban. The quote that got me on this one in the diner is when he said, "Whatever happened to my fucking civil rights?"
Yeah.
Ha! Unfortunate. I mean, not because it's funny, because that's so important in 2006, and it's still happening. Because it's still important now, because it's ridiculous. I would argue that's not the first instance.
No, it isn't, but it's the first, like, really focal point instance.
Sure. I'd argue the first instance is when Keith and his partner show up on scene.
Yep.
I'd argue it's when they show up and Willem Dafoe goes, "Where's the other guy?" And you get the impression from the other hostage negotiator who's on vacation's name that he's probably a white dude.
Yeah, probably, because there's a follow-up to that where Willem Dafoe's initial reaction could just be, "You're not my usual guy," and then followed up shortly afterwards. There's some comment he makes that's it's not an overt slur, but there's something in there about, like, kind of a mild racial comment, and that's when it's like, oh yeah, he's probably hammering home that, cool, I've got two black cops here to help me out. And
yeah, he's racist from the get-go, right?
So the
racial tension is there.
Yeah, and it's a very I think in this case, because this is Spike Lee doing this movie, Spike is very, very used to putting those very front and center, as this is the thing that is going to go with this. It was really interesting to see this one where it's there, but this is like it's one of several, like, factors on the periphery, because the focus is still this crime procedural. But this is the part that's like, hey, this is kind of informing everything that's going on in this crime procedural. So instead of it being, this is a movie about race, it's like, this is a movie about a crime with racism being a real issue in parts of it.
Well, and ultimately, it all comes back to the same thing. It all comes back to it, right? It is the reason the crime is committed in the grand scheme, which, of course it is.
Yeah.
But also not surprising the way Spike drops that. So, yes, we have Vikram. We have when there is, because the criminals are very smart, despite it being a 2006 iPod.
Yes.
Which made me giggle to myself. So they do bug the hostagers. The hostagers?
Yeah.
The hostage situation by sending in pizza. They expected that, so they play an Albanian president's speech over the iPod. Yeah,
over the iPod near where the pizza boxes are, knowing that they're like, okay, they're going to put a bug in the pizza, so we're going to give them right back. And they have to spend a long time figuring out what language this is. They finally get someone in the crowd that they play it for that says, that's Albanian. My ex-wife is Albanian. They have to call her in, where she comes in with a bag of parking tickets and says, I'll help you if you make these go away, which is kind of a funny little cameo. And there's actually it's a few instances in this movie where there's some really funny bits.
Oh, it's hilarious.
Yeah.
There's so many good one-liners, but that bag of parking tickets, somewhere in the universe, my mom is like, that was my child once.
Yeah. And so they figure out it's Albanian. She's like, this is the Albanian president. I used to hear this stuff all the time in Iron Curtain, Eastern Bloc, Albania, back in the day when she was growing up. So it's a complete wild goose chase they've sent them on to stall for time, or like to make them spend more time on it, essentially.
And there's this, as this is happening, you're cutting back and forth to the Steves. Mm-hmm. That might be what I call them.
The Steves.
The Steves. Steve. The Steves are digging a hole.
Yes.
You don't know why. Mm-hmm. You start to get is this their escape plan?
Yeah.
They're going out, like they're trying to reach a tunnel. Is there a tunnel under this bank? Mm-hmm. What do?
Yeah.
And of course, you don't get the answer until the end, but as it's happening, it's cutting back and forth, right? So they're clearly stalling for time, and it becomes more clear as we're going that they're stalling for time.
Yeah.
Anyway, we can come back to the time thing. Just the like, I'm gonna say race relations / racism, because we obviously, so the Albanian, because when they think it's Russian, there's some kind of slur for Russians.
Yeah.
When they, obviously when Vikram gets taken down, ridiculous. The child in his video game.
Yeah.
And the like violent video game that he's playing with the Clive Owen's character. He's like, oh, let me look at this.
Yeah, which is very clearly modeled after a Grand Theft Auto style.
But is so much more stereotypical gangster.
Yeah.
Like of the like hood rat sort of variety. I'm using air quotes around that because this is really not.
Yeah. This is in the era where even the kid quotes him. This is the 50 Cent era of rap.
Get rich or die
trying thing, which the kid references. So that's the era that this game exists in, and it would have been Grand Theft Auto 3, Grand Theft Auto San Andreas, somewhere in and around there when these games were. They wasn't that far off. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
There is also the cop that initially finds and calls in the suspicious actions at the bank when he's having a conversation with Denzel, and he seems like a pretty colloquial guy, and Denzel asked him, he said that, like, because the criminals point a gun in his face, tell him not to, if he sees any cops, then they're going to start shooting hostages. And Denzel, just having a conversation with him, says, have you ever had a gun pointed at you before? Just like, that's a big deal. And the guy says, only once. It was by a 12-year-old kid. And Denzel goes, yikes, we're going to have to come back to that. And later in the movie, when he does have a chance to talk to him again, he says, he's like, tell me about the story with the 12-year-old. And that cop, who has been pretty normal up till that point, uses a Hispanic slur for the two kids that are getting in a fight. And there's also a moment where you can tell the kid that pulls a gun on him is a black kid. And there's a moment where he hesitates before he says that, and you're like, oh, okay. We know what he was going to say if he was sitting there telling it to his friends.
And it's the like casual drop of all of these slurs that I'd like to say are eradicated, and I haven't heard, but they're not.
No, some of the words are, but they get replaced by other words.
And the casual way that white folks in particular, and as a pair of white folks, the casual way that white folks can just be like, oh, this is a little bit of racism just to spice my conversation up. Like, it's wild to me that nobody looks at the ramifications of what they're saying.
Yeah.
And they're not in this movie until somebody has to point it out. And of course, why is it the black character who has to point out that racism is shitty and you're doing this? And I mean, shitty's a severe undertone for what's actually happening. But why is it the folks of color who are responsible for teaching everybody else? They're not, but it's always how that goes.
Yeah.
And it's fucking frustrating. Even now, as white folks, it's our job.
Yeah.
And I worry that sometimes when we're talking about things like this, I worry that that's how that can come across. And that's certainly never our intention. And if it is happening, I want somebody to call me on it.
Yeah.
But this is a really great commentary on how essentially racism in all fabrics and in all varieties is built into the fabric of, in this case, American life. But I'd argue North American for sure. Totally.
And, there are some comments about Jewish folks as well, because a couple of the hostages one's a rabbi. They're basically, the point of this is that just how ingrained this was at this point. And in the story, the criminals in a lot of cases actually use it to their advantage in certain ways.
Absolutely they do.
Yeah. Yeah, the other part of that, and the other half of it, is this other story going on.
Well, and I was going to say, I don't know if it's fun for you, because, like, we don't always pay attention to what the folks are called, right? To what characters are called. Are we talking about, like, Keith is Denzel Washington's character, etc.?
Yeah.
Jodie Foster's character's name is Madeline White.
Yep.
The irony / obviously intentional decision to name the white woman fixer White, it was not lost on me.
No, and she is constantly wearing nothing but a, like, brilliantly white pantsuit, hair pulled back, probably blonder than she normally is.
Like, it's very much in that
Blue-eyed, blonde hair, and that is the interesting transition. And I'm going to maybe throw this out there because we're enough into this that we probably can't dance around it anymore. So I'm going to say, if you haven't seen Inside Man, you should go watch Inside Man. We do love that we have people that listen to us that haven't seen the movie that we're talking about. This is probably one that, before you keep going with this, because I think we're going to get into spoiler territory here.
Yeah.
Yeah, so spoiler alert from here on out, even though it's a 19-year-old movie, it's worth seeing in the movie for the first time as opposed to us talking about it.
This is a point where we would say, normally I don't give a flying rat's behind, but today, pause, go watch the movie, come back and talk to us.
It's great. Now that you're back, welcome back.
Welcome back.
It's a good movie, hey?
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, awesome.
So now let's talk about the elephant in the room.
Yeah.
Nazis?
So I actually had an inkling early on that this was maybe where this was going to go.
Of course you did.
Mostly because when it's talking about a bank and safety deposit boxes and things, there's something in there that, and maybe it's because I watched another movie recently called The Train, which is a World War II movie where Burt Lancaster plays a train conductor who is French, who is making the trains run on time in Nazi-occupied France.
Yikes.
Who also is part of the underground resistance and is helping them with train scheduling. And they plan to basically divert a train that is supposed to be carrying a bunch of like priceless French paintings back to Nazi Germany before D-Day is happening, because they know the invasion's coming or it's already happening and they're about to get overrun. And the Nazis know it's happening, so they're planning to retreat with this like priceless artwork. So I don't know if it was because I had just recently seen that on my own that I was thinking that was on the brain of Nazi stealing stuff. Similar case in this one. Basically, the big, what's it in this movie is that in this safety deposit box is a bunch of diamonds, but the real important part to Christopher Plummer's character is an envelope with information showing that basically his wealth was given to him by the Nazis as a French man, I believe. It's somewhere in Paris, I believe.
It doesn't necessarily indicate that he is French.
Mm-hmm.
But that the person, so there's loose diamonds.
Yeah.
There's a Cartier ring.
Yeah.
And then there's this envelope.
Yeah.
And the understanding you have at the end is that this ring belonged to the wife of a French banker.
Yeah.
That he was friends with. So you don't necessarily get that Christopher Plummer was French, and I don't think that's the case here.
No, that may not be the case.
Although Case is the name of this character as well.
Mm-hmm.
But that he's friends with them. So maybe while he's, he may have lived in France.
Yeah.
But this French banker was Jewish.
Yeah. So he effectively sold out his friend to the Nazis in exchange for what he quoted is like an inordinate amount of money. The Nazis paid well.
So he sold out his friend and his wife, his friend and the friend's wife, who were killed.
Yeah.
Because he does say no one survived.
Yeah.
So it's not even that he sold them out and then, later they were one of the ones who survived. Because there are some folks who escaped and survived and all sorts of other horrible things happened. But, so he sold them out to be killed by the Nazis for money.
Yeah.
And has then, the implication is come to America. Or maybe was in America when that happened, but folks, you don't know. You don't really know. Takes this Nazi money and proceeds to open this bank.
And then eventually an empire of other banks and other ventures, because he's now one of the quote-unquote rich elite.
Right,
basically.
He's got the money.
And he makes a comment at one point about this to Jodie Foster when he has hired her, and she is essentially trying to retrieve this envelope from the safety deposit box. I don't think he gives a shit about the diamonds. I think it's and maybe the ring and the envelope. But it's the incriminating part against him that he's concerned about, which is the contents of this envelope.
Well, and why? Because it's clear at the end why, but you said maybe the ring.
Yeah.
Did you catch why the ring is important?
Yes, yeah, because it's being like a Cartier ring, that is traceable.
Yeah, there's serial numbers in those diamonds.
So
it's not traceable? Loose diamonds.
Loose diamonds, and that's what's in the rest of the the bags. You find it out when Clive Owen's character opens them up. And so that basically the racial tension in this entire movie comes then down to a rich elite white man that sold out a Jewish friend and wife in World War II to start a bank is the one that doesn't want to be touched, that wants his hands clean of the rest of this, and he's off in his ivory tower office away from everything.
He does try to come down and hang out at the crime scene once.
To try, very, very early on, and everybody kind of looks and goes like, no, cool, bro, we'll get you your money back. That's going to be fine.
Yeah, man, you can't be here. What are you doing here? He does imply, and so does Clive Owen's character, at some point, that he has spent his life since starting the bank trying to do good things.
Trying to make up for it.
Trying to make up for it. And I think this poses a really interesting question. Sorry, I poses an interesting question that my answers already know this is reprehensible, but I think if you look at this sort of moral dilemma, quote unquote, for Arthur Case, who is the head of the bank, and Christopher Plummer's character, the moral dilemma for Jodie Foster, because it's about money, and when you meet Jodie Foster's character, she's ostensibly talking to Osama bin Laden's nephew about getting an apartment.
Yeah.
That's what's implied at the end, or that's what she sort of tells as a story. You don't actually know that to be certain.
Yeah, you don't know if it's certain. She's using it as a dig at him, being like, this is the kind of monster you are.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
But she's not above taking money to help the monsters. She's digging at him, but she did it.
Yeah.
You've got Denzel Washington, who has this, what we later learn is $140,000 missing dollars hanging over his head. We don't actually know where that money goes.
Nope.
Is that somebody trying to frame him, or did he take that money? But all of a sudden it's back.
Yeah, it's found.
It's found. Oh, mystery money found. Do you want to know where they found it? No, I don't want to know where they found it. Yeah. Interesting. But they found the money, and it is implied heavily that he will be promoted to detective first class.
Yeah, which at the end he does. He has his plaque to show.
Absolutely, but throughout the movie. Yeah. So we have promotion and fixing of this situation. We have money for Madeline White. We have money for Arthur Case. So at the central tenet of this movie isn't just racism has caused all of this. And I think I'm going to back up a little bit too. We also have Clive Owen and all of the criminals. Because is a crime actually committed here?
Yeah, so
sorry.
We'll get to that part because I want to talk about Clive Owen a little bit later.
So, but we also have Clive Owen and all of the criminals who are, he kind of implies or makes it seem in places like he knows what's in that.
He does.
He absolutely knows what's in that safety deposit box, and that he's going to have it because, how could you do something like this? This is reprehensible. But at the same time is doing it to get the diamonds and the money. Yeah. So money corrupts. Like that's capitalism and money.
And there's sort of two different types of people in this movie. There are fixers, or those who want things fixed or to go away, and there are those that will make sure that they don't go away.
It's like the anonymous situation.
And obviously Jodie Foster's character is the fixer, the cleaner, whatever you want to call it. Arthur Case wants this to go away because he's covered it for years and years and is trying to make up for this morally reprehensible thing. Even to a little bit Willem Dafoe's police officer character being in charge of things, he wants the situation to end. Like, he's not really there for getting to the bottom of this, and he would rather take charge and get the SWAT team in and do a shootout, which they're planning at some one point in time until they don't have to. And Denzel's character and his partner are both kind of the cops that they're not going to let it go.
Yes.
And then Clive Owen and his band of merry criminals are also the type that are not willing to let it go, because when they get there, they're not there to take any money.
No. And I think it's interesting to have that sort of moral high ground, I'll use, quote unquote, to equate the criminals and the two detectives that are central to this movie.
Yeah.
I ain't mad about it.
No.
I'm not arguing that Denzel Washington and his partner. I'm not implying that they're criminals, because I don't think that's the case.
Mm-mm.
But the sort of do the right thing, thanks Spike Lee, or at least partly to do the right thing, is clearly tied the two of them. Like, there's a thread there, I think, that ties the two of them together, versus Jodie Foster's character versus Willem Dafoe's character versus Christopher Plummer's, or any of the other, because, you know, we talked a little, Willem Dafoe wants to just leap in there, and even the captain?
Yeah.
Like, that, the two detectives report to?
Yeah.
Also,
he wants to make it go away because there was no crime. They didn't steal anything. Let's bury it.
Yeah. Like, what? Sorry, bury it? Because on the books, there is no crime. Yeah. But yeah, it's this really interesting, again, it feels almost like a moral high ground of, I'm doing the right thing here. I've got this. I'm going to expose this. I can. But in the next breath, it's also for financial gain. Yeah.
So I have a question for you then.
Ooh, I like
it. We haven't talked too much about the criminals. Nope. Clive Owen. And that's probably on purpose, because I think this is probably the biggest, most unknowable part of the movie that we can expound upon with conversation. Do we think that Clive Owen used to do what Denzel does?
Oh,
because
that's a good question.
Because this is one of the most immaculately planned out crimes that is specific to hostage negotiation in a bank.
Yeah, he's done something similar.
Yeah, like there had to be parts where it's like he is so far anticipating every move of the playbook of a hostage negotiator for the police that I kind of always got the sense through it that I'm like, I wonder if that was going to be one of the things at the end, that it comes out that he is actually so-and-so and used to be blah, like used to do what Denzel did. And that's why there's some kind of a kinship for them at the end. There's no hint to it whatsoever, but it made me feel that way because everything about it was so immaculately planned, especially down to the like anticipating what the police are going to do and why the police are going to do it. And it goes both ways too, because Denzel also has some moments where he says, you know, he's telling us this, he's playing us the Albanian president stuff, so we'll go on a wild goose chase thinking we have a timeline, but what they're doing is creating time for themselves to do what they're doing in the bank. So there's this back and forth of like them one-upping each other, but then also them anticipating being one-upped, and then, you know, like sending the bug into the police emergency center with the sign that they put around the Sikh gentleman. You know, there's all these layers of like, right, I'm like, he thinks I'm playing four-dimensional chess, but I'm going one step further. And then, well, he knows that I'm going to go one step further, so I'll go an even further. Like,
yeah, they're always constantly trying to outwit each other. There's a comment about one of them being too smart for their own good. I can't remember which one it is, but I think they're similarly intelligent, which is interesting to compare the good guy versus the bad guy, right? And that sort of... Yeah. But there is the question, what's good and what's evil at this point? So here's a fun one, because I think yes, at some point. So they talk about and this is just me going like on a deep dive, and somewhere, if this ever crosses Spike Lee's ears or the screenwriters, they're going to be like, no, ma'am, you're insane. The hostage negotiator that is on vacation, his name is Goodman, which is hilarious. Yeah. Because good man. Is this the hostage negotiator who's on vacation? Does he come back from vacation, or does he take the diamonds in GTFO? I don't actually know if I believe that, but it wowould be really funny if that's the tie-in. He's so good at it because he's the dude who would normally fix things for you. Yeah, I don't know. It was an interesting... I remember thinking that, and at the end I'm like, okay, we never got that answered, but I wonder... There has to be something, because he does say, you know, I don't repeat myself, and the who, the what, the when, the why. Like, he's clearly the mastermind of what's happening here. He has help. Yeah. But he's the one who's planned it. It's fucking meticulous. Yeah. And almost untraceable. I wondered if he was more on a Madeline side in the sense that he knows, maybe it's not that, but he's got some kind of inside knowledge of what's in this safety deposit box.
Yes.
That doesn't exist on any records.
Yeah.
So that's why at the end of this whole thing they say nothing's been stolen, because it's 391 and 393.
Yeah.
392 does not exist.
Yeah, they don't have a paper record for it.
I got the number right?
Yep.
392? Mm-hmm. It doesn't exist in record.
Yeah.
It's there because it's built in, but it does not exist on any records.
Yeah.
And so as far as the bank is concerned, nothing has been stolen. Which is why, was a crime actually committed? Well, yeah, he did walk off with these Nazi blood diamonds.
Yeah, and there's the motivations for Clive Owen, for Dalton, are unknown. We really don't know who he is. We don't know why he's doing. He says he's doing it because he can,
and because of financial gain.
Yeah.
Those are the two things he ever admits to, so to speak.
So the money, I mean, the money in the bank vault is the big MacGuffin of this whole story, is that they're there to steal the money, but they're not. They are eventually there to take the envelope and the diamonds.
Well, and that's, I think, for me, is what he means by the financial gain.
Yes.
You try to leave with the money you've stolen out of a bank vault, there's going to be serial numbers on that, and they will find you.
Absolutely. And it's
Loose diamonds?
Yeah.
Not a chance.
And that's why it's a brilliant setup for a crime film, because when you say financial gain and we're going to rob a bank, you don't have to say anything else and people will assume.
Well, of course
you're
you
there
assume.
for the money, and you're not necessarily there for the thing that nobody knows is in the safety deposit box that isn't on any records. Like, so that's the part. It's like, okay, so there's an interesting, like, where does the motivation come from? Is he operating independently and it has found a crew of people to help him with this one job? Probably not, because he does kiss the girl. That's one of his accomplices, Stevie. So they clearly are involved.
Steve and Stevie and Steve-O and Steven and Phoebo and
Stevenson and...
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. In addition to that, I think it's interesting because in the end it's not 3 and it's not 4.
Yeah.
It's 5.
Yep.
There are 5 criminals.
Yeah. So it is very, like, the unknowable motivation and the unknowable who was the person. It does end up being the rabbi.
Yeah.
It's like,
which
okay,
I love.
Yeah, that's kind of great. And the rabbi actually is the one that when they do interview him in the interview cut-ins, Denzel's talking with him, going like, oh, about something. And the rabbi goes, oh, what do you need? And Denzel mentions something about diamonds. And the rabbi does that, and they don't catch it eventually. And that's like, oh, they don't connect to it because they don't know that diamonds have been stolen, because they don't ever find out, other than the Cartier diamond ring, that there was also diamonds in the safety deposit box. Denzel didn't know that. Clive Owen did.
No, I think Denzel knows it at the very end when he's standing there holding that loose diamond in his hand.
So that's the one where in the movie, Clive Owen's character, after being in his prison cell that they created for him to shelter inside the bank for a week to let things cool off, whatever it is, then he waits for a moment, gets out of his wall prison, takes the duffel bags through the bank, and walks out the front door like he says he was going to, just as Denzel and Chiwetel are coming into the bank to ask about something, and he, like, bumps into him, what looks like accidentally, on the way out, and they go, oh, I'm sorry, don't recognize each other, because Clive Owen had masks on before. And at the end of the movie, Denzel gets home and is going, like, taking stuff out of his pockets to take his jacket off, and finds a loose diamond, and then connects the dots that the guy that bumped into him was actually him, and doesn't go in the way of, like, oh, I need to go catch him now, because there's a little bit of respect there, and he's like, okay, you given me the ring, we're gonna follow the ring.
Well, they've started to follow the ring, and they can figure out he's been able to connect the Nazi stuff to the ring, right? Yeah. I wonder, does he use that loose diamond to finally have a diamond ring made for his girlfriend?
I think that's why Clive Owen puts it in his pocket, for sure, because they talk about that. Mm-hmm. And that's the other thing about both of their characters, is Clive Owen's character is very, very to the point, very, like, mechanical, has to be with this kind of plan for it. And he does show a little bit of humanity in a very select few spots. One of them is when he's bringing pizza to the kid.
Yeah, and then they talk about the video game.
They talk about the video game, and the kid's putting on a tough face. I'm from Brooklyn, so they just are having a conversation, and clearly he does not want to harm the kid.
Or anybody,
he does not want
really.
to harm anybody other than beating Peter Hammond's face in for trying to hide a cell phone. But the only other time they do anything is faking hostage execution.
Well, I mean, you said faking like there was air quotes, but in reality it was fake. Yeah. There was no hostage.
No, and they do it because they know they're being photographed, and they know that suddenly, as soon as they've killed the hostage, they will plan to storm the bank, and that's what they want them to do.
There has to be something. I'm intrigued by his character. Yes, I think there's a lot of connection between the motivations and just the general characteristics of Denzel's, of Keith and of Dalton. Mm-hmm. However, my big question, and this is my big question we talked about, is he a former hostage negotiator? Mm-hmm. What else does he do? Why does he know stuff? Because he knows this is, the safety deposit box exists. Mm-hmm. Is he a former bank employee? Because how else do you know that you can build a fake wall in the storage room and have nobody find you? Yeah. Because, now I think security systems 20 years later are a lot more advanced, and if there's any movement within the building, then they go off. Yeah. But not always the case. Mm-hmm. I just guess it's my security systems from setting them at work. But, yeah. So what?
Yeah. There's also enough knowledge to know, when they're digging the hole, they're not digging the hole for the cell, because the cell is on the other side of the wall. Mm-hmm. They're digging the hole so they can find the sewer pipe, because he's going to stay there for a week and he can't be found. And if they're going into that storage room and you smell a bunch of human feces in there, something's up. So that's it's this 4-dimensional chess thing that they're it's so meticulously planned, and they know so much about it. So they do have obviously somebody that is going to have some knowledge of that bank in some way, shape, or form. It could be the rabbi that's a customer there that's getting information for them, or is going and giving them blueprints. Who knows? But that's part of the fun of this movie, is that it doesn't spell it out for you at the end.
No.
And it could be, we don't get an indication, but, maybe Clive Owen's character is also Jewish. And maybe there's something about the knowledge of, yes, this Arthur Case person is traced back to this incident in France and selling out his Jewish friend and taking 40s. The money, and this is the retribution. We don't know. It's not ever indicated that. You only really have the rabbi that is there as part of the crew, as the inside man within the 5 of them, but you don't know, and that's part of, I think, what makes this a really interesting story.
Well, and the other thing you don't know, and I find fascinating. That's right. It's fascinating. With these 5 criminals. Mm-hmm. He walks out the bank, he gets in this SUV, they leave. Yeah. There's no indication that they're going and doing anything with those diamonds necessarily. There's no indication of them. Obviously, they're never prosecuted because they're told to bury it. So that's, from what we can tell, they're not going to be the issue. Arthur Case is the one who's going to have the issue. Mm-hmm. Eventually, whatever that looks like.
Whenever that is, yeah.
They ask for a plane because they're stalling, right? So this is a really well done crime across the board. Yeah. And it's funny because he says, ask for sandwiches later. Yeah. And he knew there would be pizza. Mm-hmm. They do have them bugged, so that's probably why he knows about sandwiches. And there's also the riddle that everybody starts losing their mind about, which is what trains run through.
Oh my god, that was really funny.
I loved that.
That was a moment that didn't need to be that funny, and just suddenly everybody became the most pedantic person in the room.
The pedantometers are going wild. But where are they going? What are they doing now? Are they going to take those diamonds and live in New York? Yep. Are they staying? Because this is on Wall Street as well, right? So there's also that interesting,
Wall Street and Broadway.
Wall Street and Broadway, and this interesting implication of, what Wall Street means for people, especially in 2006. Yeah, in the mid-2000s, and what that kind of... Because we're just ahead of a huge crash at this point. Yep. And I think kind of headed towards that. In hindsight, we know now we were headed towards that. We wouldn't have known that in 2006 when this came out, but kind of that, overall of Wall Street being this big looming dudes who work on Wall Street and the money. It's not just dudes, but that's kind of the image in '06, right? This, like, the dudes who work on Wall Street and all the money they have to blow, and you're thinking, like, Wolf of Wall Street level.
Yeah.
Like, bullshit. Obviously,
Big Short. Yeah.
Yeah, like, different eras, but, like, that same sort of image.
That environment, yeah.
And what money means, right? And who's selling their soul on Wall Street to make money, because that's really the other thing, is there's a lot of soul selling for dollars here.
Yep.
Yeah, it's just this really interesting... What happens now? Do these people go on to keep working their regular lives? Because the plane was a distraction to delay long enough to find the sewer pipe, really, and to build the wall.
Yep.
That's all it was there for. So did they really want a plane? Are they just going to get on a plane and go to Aruba with actual money? Just regular people get on a plane, be fine because they've sold the diamonds?
Yep.
Are they, like, what are they doing?
Yeah, and it's a fun, I mentioned the word MacGuffin. There's actually, there's a few things in this movie that could be considered that, because the money being one of them.
Yeah.
Like, that is the big MacGuffin for the crime. But really, the crime itself is a big MacGuffin hiding any of the intentions behind it, and also hiding the fact that, like, this is not for, like, there's going to be financial gain, but not how you think. There's going to be a crime, but it's not what you think.
Yeah.
And when they say, oh, well, there's no crime here, we're going to get rid of it, Denzel's character going through and seeing this through and taking the ring to Jodie Foster and the mayor, because, of course, the mayor of New York would need a fixer in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, well, you know, there's the former mayor of New York who also needed his hair fixed, but that's fine.
Yeah, well, and a current mayor of New York that probably should have had a few things fixed. Eric Adams is a terrible person. Eric Adams is not going to listen to this podcast.
No, that's fine, and you're right.
Yeah.
I'm just, maybe don't have it fixed, and don't vote in terrible humans. Anyway.
Yeah, anyway, so they, you know, there's these smoke screens and these things kind of put up, just like Arthur Case would have done to, you know, build himself a financial empire and become probably what I'm going to say is a billionaire, of, you know, building up quote unquote goodwill or doing good behind dirty money and trying to erase something. And, you know, you have a lot of that idea of, yeah, there's a crime that's going to be going on and we're going to bring this up. You can't erase it. This doesn't go away. So the MacGuffin trope and of a mystery, which is a long used tradition back to Sherlock Holmes and other things like that.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
In this case, there's layers to everything.
It's so clever
in the MacGuffin. Yeah, this is a really, really smart script.
This whole thing, and it's like shot so well, and it's casted unbelievably. Like, it's such a smart movie.
Yeah, it's really, really good.
Because there's a lot of talk about money, right? And there was a line about, you know, the money showed up. Denzel Washington, hey, do you want to know where they found it? No, I don't want to know where they found it.
Is it in my wallet? No, I don't care.
I don't want it. Yeah, they find it on me, essentially, right? Yeah. There's also a line from Case where he says the Nazis paid too well. And it's just this, like, hammering home gently, but hammering home repeatedly that you can't come back from selling your soul. No. Right? But that people will sell themselves out for money. Yep. That money is the bringer of all things. Hence it happening anywhere but Wall Street would have been a miss. Yeah, totally. Because that was, at that time, in 2006, that is the epicenter of money. More money, more problems, so to speak. But
well, and there is a little kind of story thread with Denzel and his girlfriend, who is also a police officer, I believe. Yes. She said she might see him at the crime scene at some point when she's on shift. Well, when they're on the
phone earlier, she's I believe, a uniformed officer. Yes. So she's probably not a detective yet.
No, I don't think so.
But she maybe will be and will take over at the end. Sorry, was that out loud? I went 10 minutes there. My bad.
But they, there's the implication that, it's a longtime girlfriend. They've got her brother who's a bit of a ne'er-do-well, who's trying to figure out his life. Way of
putting it than I think Denzel Washington did.
Yes, correct. And there's mention about, like, at least I'm not married. Well, marriages cost money. And there's this part on his side of, like, it's expensive. Rings are expensive. And, you know, that rings true in a few different spaces, especially when the big ring gets revealed. But he also talks about that, and it's like, that's a financial burden, and he's thinking about money as much as he is, quote unquote, one of the good guys with less of the gray area than a lot of other people. He's still very concerned about money, and the only time that he doesn't really have that concern regarding getting married is when Clive Owen drops a untrackable diamond in his pocket, and it's like, get a ring made, fool, and just like go get married. And they talk about that, like there's the moment where Denzel does go into the bank as part of the negotiation to see if there's any hostages that have been killed, to make sure that, like, okay, if you're upholding your deal, I need to see this. So they let him in. Everybody's got masks on. Everybody's fine other than Peter, who got the shit beat out of him because he likes Kanye West. And
it's a good reason, to be honest.
And then they have like a talk when they're walking through the upper part of the bank before he leaves, and you can tell there's some respect between them, which is part of the reason why I thought maybe Clive Owen's character did what he did. But also that, like, they know they're on the same kind of level intellectually.
Yeah,
that
absolutely.
There's a respect between them, and there's a talk of, like, being... I don't know, I remember how it comes up, but there's something about his wife, or I'm not married, or I need to get married, or something. And Clive Owen's character, like, asks, what's stopping you? He says, rings are expensive. And Dalton says, you know, money isn't everything when it comes to that. You should just do it.
Yeah.
Like, so they're having this weird conversation, a very tense situation, and that's the kind of... I don't know necessarily if it's the thing that changes Denzel, because he does, you know, benefit from the fixer getting him first-class detective, which means he's going to get more money, which means he's going to be more secure. So he does get what he wants in that case, but then it's also like, don't rely on money too much, and Arthur Case is kind of the case end point. Ha! So clever on this podcast.
You're so smart.
I tell you.
I think there's another interesting thread, and this is really stuff that we've talked about more recently, because we talk about stuff that, like, you know, how it's still accurate. We're talking about racism. It's a really interesting ACAB situation happening here too, in that it's not necessarily the case. Oh, that's gonna be a tough one now. We know it's the case. Right? Like, we're talking about Keith and his being promoted to detective first class, and what actually happens to make that happen.
Yeah.
And so you've got some, like, morally gray, potentially questionable things that have caused that, or motives that have allowed that to happen. So that's the don't trust the police thing, right? I think is maybe more important than kind of an ACAB.
Yeah.
That's a more modern sort of take on that. And a much more aggressive take on that, and rightfully so in a lot of cases.
Yeah.
But you've got this police force where there's that. They're going in to have a shootout, but they're going in to have a shootout in the hostage situation with rubber bullets. The intention is not to kill anybody.
Yeah.
And it's interesting that when they do get people out and they start shooting, people yelling ceasefire does nothing. And they keep
firing until it's, like, said about the 6th or 7th time. Yeah.
So what's the implication about the police force?
Yeah. Yeah.
And that, coupled with, they tackled the old man who's having the heart attack, right? They've tackled the Sikh.
Vikram,
the Sikh man, had taken his turban, like, violently ripped his turban off.
Yes.
There's a lot of the sort of casual racism is coming from within the police force. It's not only that, because other people have thoughts on that too, but almost exclusively that's where it's coming from. And of course, we're watching a movie about police crime procedurals, but you don't hear that from the criminals. You don't hear that from the hostages. You hear that from the police. So what is this movie a commentary on about the police as an institution, not necessarily as individuals, but the police state?
Yes. And at that point in time, it was very much the everyone's a criminal and no one's a criminal, but we treat everybody like a criminal until we can prove it that they're not.
So 06 is not, like, and filmed probably in 05, I would think.
Oh, totally. I think there's a lingering effect of the September 11th fallout from a lot of that. And it existed before, but, like, there's a real militarization of police.
Yes.
Especially in the U.S.
Yes.
That happened because of 9/11 and is still continuing to linger. And the rubber bullet thing was interesting because they're using a. This is the fun about doing the job that I do is I get to write things for learning modules that I would never have had any information about. But
That's why you're good at trivia.
I know, yeah. It's like if you have a pub trivia team, hit me up. I'm good for it.
Unless it's about current celebrities, at which point you're useless, and that's what I'm here for.
You tag along and pick up my slack. Sure.
Good. Teamwork.
So the weapon they're using is called an Arwen, which is a ARWEN.
Yep.
It's an acronym, and I don't remember what it's for, but it's basically a what they call a non-lethal weapon to debilitate people to enable the police to get on them and arrest them, essentially.
Yeah.
It's been used in as part of riot squads.
Absolutely.
For
that's
years.
where I know it from too.
And that's what gets used here. So when they're using this and continue to use it because it's a quote unquote non-lethal, there have been instances where there have been deaths because of non-lethal rubber bullets from an Arwen hitting the wrong place. And when people use it, they're taught to hit certain parts of the body to debilitate. That's neither here nor there. But it takes a bit of time before they actually stop.
Yep.
And if this movie was set 12 to 15 years later, I'm not sure they're using a non-lethal means for it. I think it's the militarization of the force and the weaponry that's available and that people are trained on is a little bit astonishing. And it probably would have meant that it would have just been 7 people dead instead of taking everybody hostage. And yeah.
Even though what the hostage takers had were all plastic toy weapons.
Yes, which is also very funny. But how funny is it that they probably didn't have to go to too many stores before they found the correct plastic AK-47s.
Well, and I think, no, you're right. I'm just having this moment of all of the criminals are white, and no one shoots them, despite having plastic guns. And that's not necessarily... That's a function of the whole movie, right? If they shot them, then this movie's over and everything's gone wrong.
Yeah.
The perfect crime is no longer the perfectly planned crime. But, I think you're right. If this movie is set in 25, what's the difference?
Yeah, it's probably not this.
No, I think those are all real weapons, and I think but do the criminals still get away because they're white? Maybe.
Yeah.
It's gross. I hate it. I hate it here.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna switch gears and talk about something I loved.
Okay.
Because it made me giggle. There was a lot of one-liners that were hilarious in this movie.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't write them all down. We talked about the riddle and everybody devolving into pedantometer.
Even after they've solved it and informed Dalton of the correct answer, and he says, this time we want sandwiches. So, they've solved it, but they're still arguing about what the correct answer is, even though they got it.
Isn't that a workplace, really? It happens. Also... the van.
Yes.
Because Dalton in his opening monologue says, I have planned the perfect crime. And the van is perfectly planned painting. And it's so beautifully cut to that I laughed really hard at it. I was very pleased. And I know we talked about this a little bit earlier, and I don't know if we actually came right out and said it, but Dalton's interviews are not interviews. Right?
They're monologues. And
who's he monologuing to?
Yeah, this is, and we talk about whose story are we telling in different movies, because sometimes movies have multiple storytellers. Goodfellas had that, where you have 2 narrators and you kind of go, oh, well, whose story is this? And kind of by the end you're like, oh, it's both of their stories, and they're talking to the DA who is gonna put them in witness protection. In this one, this is very much Dalton's story that he is telling. And you do know about other parts that Dalton wouldn't know about, but the driving force behind it is him, even though he's not a narrator.
Yes, but so who is he telling this story to? To us.
Yeah.
But to who?
Is Dalton podcasting?
I don't think so.
I don't know, man. That room that they built for him, it's probably pretty soundproof.
I mean, sure. It's 2006. It's a bit early for podcasts.
Can you think of the windfall of cash he would have gotten from true crime podcasting in 2006? Man, he would have been ahead of the curve.
He was the curve at that point.
Yeah.
That's what he did. Well, I love how many times it turns into, is this actually a podcast within our podcast? But, yeah. I have a lot of thoughts, and yet I've had all of them already, right?
Yeah. No, there's a lot of little touches in this movie that are really fun too. One that I wrote down and did look up because I was intrigued, and I was thinking it might be one thing, and I was almost sort of kind of correct. The song at the opening and closing credits.
Ah, yes, when it was too loud for my delicate ears.
Yeah, it was loud. It was a pretty interesting song that wasn't sung in English.
Correct.
So I was very intrigued, and I thought after the end of the movie, with all we've talked about, I wondered if it might have been something that was done with a sample from maybe like a Jewish singer.
Okay.
So I looked it up. It wasn't, but it's a song taken, a sample from a Bollywood film.
That makes sense based on the song at the end. Yep.
Yeah, it's called Chia Chia, and it's the remix that was done with a rap beat, and there's a few verses in it from a gentleman who goes by Punjabi MC, who you maybe have heard of. Yeah, the guy that does Beware the Boys that Jay-Z raps on.
Yes, yeah.
So he was that was like 2004 when that song came out. So he was a known commodity worldwide at that point. But it's the samples from Bollywood movie in 1998, which I thought was really interesting because we had the conversations about the Sikh gentleman, and we have obviously the conversations about Jewish people and the Nazis, and this one, I almost thought, I'm like, oh, it'd be interesting if that was the tie-in that you didn't really register until the end. It wasn't, but it still sows
It's still tied in.
It sows the world and the racial profiling and everything else. But yeah, that was a nice touch. Good tune too.
Yeah. We're talking about how would this movie be different if it was made today with the bullets and things? Mm-hmm. How would this movie be made today talking about Nazis bad? Because there's been a weird rise. Mm-hmm. I was like, we don't really need to touch on that very deeply. No. Because I think if you're listening...
The less airtime for that, the better. But
if you're listening to this, you already know. But yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of... I would actually argue this movie, and sometimes movies from certain eras when they deal with racial tensions or maybe tensions about like women's rights and certain ones, or like whatever it is, sometimes they don't age really well.
This one's aged too well.
This one's aged really well because it takes what was going on at the time and doesn't it morally judges it, but it allows it to exist and be in that time period and not be super self-righteous in one way or another.
Yeah, that's fair.
It just is like, it's a snapshot rather than being a thing bad type of thing. It's like, well, no kidding, thing is bad.
The problem though is that common sense of no kidding, thing is bad has gone a little bit by the wayside.
Yes, and media literacy in 2006 was probably a little bit higher than it is now, even though it was going down from a lot of years of things not being focused on or taught correctly. And also it's 2006, so it is right in the wave of Facebook about to be there. Correct. Social media isn't really a thing on whole. Reality TV is a thing, but just barely.
Well, that's not fair.
It's been around for a while, but trash reality TV.
Allow me to espouse about reality television.
What did you do your master's degree about?
My master's thesis was about queer representation in MTV's The Real World.
Cool.
Yeah.
Go.
Mm-hmm. I watched a lot of reality TV. Real World was the first one in 1992, but the explosion of what we now know to be reality TV versus The Real World, which was, what happens when we put 7 strangers in a room and in a house and they stop stop playing nice and start being real, I think is the catchphrase. That starts in 1992. There's a lot of really interesting things that come out of that. Honestly, if you're interested in what reality TV used to be and how that's shaped things and narratively, check out the early seasons of The Real World, because it has actual conversations about things like the AIDS crisis and queer folks happening at the beginning, which is very interesting. I wrote my master's thesis in 2012, so it's been a long time.
Yeah.
I shouldn't have left you. But it's been a long time, and things have obviously changed a lot in the last 10 to 12 years. So let's, it's devolved. The first sort of, I think, reality TV sort of juggernaut that we know and still is in existence is Survivor, and that's in 2000.
Yeah.
So we're really starting to see that the implications of what we now know to be reality TV, quote unquote, happening in 2006. So this kind of, we're starting to buy into that more. It's interesting to see all these flip phones and like a fun little nostalgia, but also the iPod doesn't connect to the internet. Yeah. And the phone, if it connected to the internet, costs you a lot of money.
Oh man, the iPod had the click wheel.
The iPod had the click wheel.
Oh man, I miss the iPod with the click wheel.
You miss the iPod.
I still have an iPod.
I know.
It plugged into my car because I am that guy.
You're so old.
At least it's an iPod Touch, but I had an iPod with a click wheel for longer than most people probably should have.
And this is where we shout out our doctor friend in Ontario, who's same. I can quote that for sure. It was such a complicated time in history, but it also in a way was a simpler time. Yeah. Like we talked about the news, people are getting their information from the news. TV. And yes, there is bias in how that's presented and shaped. Absolutely. Yeah. There is bias in how reality TV is presented and shaped, because it's purported to be this documentary, but it's not. It's always going to be shaped by who's shooting it, who's cutting it, all these things. There's bias in everything we do. And to suggest there's not is an outright lie. But the bias of the news networks and how this story would have broken versus what we would see today it's a very marked difference. So while there are parts of this movie that I think, yes, they're still carrying over, and I say this a lot in this podcast, it upsets me that this is still a relevant movie. Yeah. Honestly, Spike Lee's movies in general upsets me that they're still relevant movies. And not because they shouldn't be relevant, he's wonderful, but that the subject matter is still so relevant is upsetting.
You would think we would be past some of this, and we are not.
No, we go back to it sometimes. So, it's an interesting commentary on what was happening then. It is a relevant commentary on a lot of what's happening now, but it's also a good sort of look at the socio-political climate that has changed and or not changed based on what we were doing in 2006 versus now. Yeah. I think I am out of thoughts.
Yeah, that kind of takes me, I think, to mostly where I wanted to talk about.
I
think this is the movie's excellent. It's incredibly well written. We kind of have a run of really well written movies for what we've done so far on our podcast and what we're going to do, which is good. And you and I both being writers in different capacities, it makes sense that we're drawn to that sort of thing. But there's a lot of great choices for something that could very much, and again, no shade to somebody like Ron Howard, but in a different director's hands, this is a very different movie with the same plot points that still is just sort of a movie that you might forget in 3 days.
Yeah, just sort of a standard crime procedural versus what this movie actually is. Yeah. So I'm going to say 7 blood diamonds out of 7 would watch again. No, that's a bad rating system.
50 hostages saved.
50 hostages saved out of 50. Yeah, would watch again.
No, it's great, and it's Spike Lee is wonderful. We're about to, in fact, the new Spike Lee Highest to Lowest is out
now
in theaters and is going to be on Apple Plus streaming soon, which also has Denzel. I think it's their 5th or 6th film together.
That tracks.
Which is great. Denzel and Spike are like peanut butter and jelly. It's they're really fun to watch in the interviews of anything, but for the new movie they've talked about like they're just sitting there just shooting the shit as a couple of guys being dudes and making each other laugh. Like
guys being dudes.
So I'm really looking forward to seeing Highest to Lowest, and there's more Spike films that I haven't seen. I know there's some that you haven't seen.
Yes, we should watch more of.
Want to watch more of.
Yeah, I love it.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting. This is going to be a fun segue, but I'm going to put a pin in it for a moment. Remind me to come back to the most recent Spike Lee movie at the end of this.
Yes. I think this might be the right time because I don't know that I have too much else to share.
Oh, it's great. No, if you are interested in crime procedurals, and I watch SVU for comfort TV, so that's super my jam. This is an excellent movie with a lot of commentary beyond that, and the driving force is worth it. And if you have now gotten to the end of this and we've spoiled it and you haven't watched it, bro, go back and watch it.
Go watch it.
Even
if you know, it's really good to watch. It's very engaging, really very entertaining. It doesn't surprise me this made a lot of money.
No, it's a great movie.
Yeah.
Okay, so for our next act,
we're going to also do something a little bit different because this one we did, I can't believe we haven't seen.
And maybe we'll revisit that in another 10 episodes.
Yeah, but the next one we're going to go back to I can't believe you haven't seen, but we're going to do a movie
that we've both seen.
That both Jess and I have watched, but we've invited a special guest that hasn't seen it to come and talk about All About Eve from 1950. Oldest movie yet.
I know, it's going to be great. So our dear friend and fellow movie nerd Ashley is going to be joining us for her thoughts on All About Eve, while Matt and I try desperately not to be too much, and it's going to be great.
Can't guarantee the results on that one.
No. In addition to that, now that we've hit 10 episodes, we just again want to remind everybody of places you can find us. We are on Instagram and TikTok at I Can't Believe You Haven't Seen.
Yes.
Matt has a Letterboxd.
I do. That's at Maddie236.
And I said Spike Lee, I'm coming back to this because the most recent movie is gone to streaming, and I have thoughts about that, and I know Matt does as well. So please check out our sister/related podcast.
Yeah.
It's Matt's podcast called Cinema on a Shelf.
Yeah, it's all about physical media collecting, which I am a big fan of. All the movies we actually watch, I either own or get a copy of on physical media. So we're either watching a DVD or a Blu-ray or 4K. And yeah, if you're interested in that sort of thing, would love you to check it out. We're a few episodes deep so far. And yeah, it's been really fun to do. Just like this podcast has been really fun to do. You're fun to podcast with.
You're fun to hang out with.
And we'll do the same thing with some friends next time on I Can't Believe You Haven't Seen.
Thanks, everybody.
Until next time.